home, sweet home. Perhaps we can make our home, Winsted, great again. As many of you know, I have recently repeated 8 programs in a series I did a year ago called Trump Winsted. At that time, nobody expected Donald Trump to win. I even had doubts myself. But he did win. And now I thought I would take the time during this very important election year in Winsted to try to compare the thinking big that Donald Trump is doing, the spreading the word that Donald Trump is doing, to try to help make Winsted great again. Now, whenever I say that to people, they say, well, was Winsted ever great? And I said, yes, at one time, I believe that Winsted was great, was more balanced for its time. And over the years, when the factories moved out, and we've had a few other problems like floods and things, we began to decline. We were declining despite any money stolen by the past finance director. We were still declining. The auditors were telling us that we had problems in the finance department, but our leaders didn't pay much attention to that for one reason or another. But now we have another chance. We are starting to come back again as a country, many years after the greatest crash since the last recession, the Great Depression, and we must try, as a town, to make Winsted great again. Now, in order to do that, I will try to compare over the next year on periodic programs that I'll put on YouTube as well for distribution around the world to past and current residents of the town. I'll try to compare the decisions and the approach that Donald is taking now that he is president, after he surprised everybody who didn't think he could do it. I'll try to compare that with the things that need to be done in our town, the town of Winchester, city of Winsted. We have exactly the same problems as the federal government, as the state government. We have those problems. Many other towns and cities in Connecticut have those problems as well. I'm not going to list all the problems now. Maybe I will from time to time as we go along. But what I want to do is start at the top. I want to start at the top because our current finance board and board of selectmen are always muddling along down at the bottom. We need to change that. This is our opportunity to do so. Now, first, I want to present you with a few facts just so you can put things in perspective as we go along. During the last presidential election, Donald Trump received about 50% more votes than his competitor in Winsted, give or take. I believe it was kind of the same in all of Litchfield County. So we can go along, I hope, on his coattails. We might be able to get a very business, growth-orientated finance board and board of selectmen elected during the next election in November of 2017. Most of the politicians in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, I'm not in either of those parties. I'm an unaffiliated voter. Most of the people in those parties, they wait till a couple months before the election. They get on television, they write letters to the local newspapers. But they are quietly starting to campaign now by attending the senior center and things like that to try to win over the voters. But usually you'll see a big push a few months before the election. Now what I'm going to try to do is get on up high and start now. And over the next 9 or 10 months, discuss with you what's needed in the next election. Mainly concentrating on the finance board, the selectmen, and the Board of Education, because I think that's where we're really in trouble and have been for many years. We need to resolve these problems this time around so we'll have a good chance to make Winsted great again. Now, I also want to tell you that the number of Republicans and the number of Democrats are about equal now, registered voters. Very close. It used to be the Democrats were quite a bit ahead as far as the number of voters were concerned, let's say 10 years ago or so, but now it's about even. So the Democrats are about 25% of the voters. The Republicans are about 25% of the voters, give or take a small percentage. And the unaffiliated voters that are growing from year to year are about 50% of the voters. Now, there are a few voters, registered voters, that are in the Green Party and the Independent Party, but they're a very, very small number. So we really need to get the word out to all the unaffiliated voters that this is their big opportunity to help make Winsted great again. They'll have to come out of the shadows, they'll have to run for office, and they'll have to win in the next election. Now that'll be hard to do because many of our residents, more and more all the time, aren't here and registered to vote here for the Selectmen, Board of Finance, and Finance Board. Now these are powerful groups because they appoint people to all the commissions and committees, and they manage by committee. And as you all know, I've told you in the past, committees produce camels. And we don't need any more camels. We've got enough. We need to make Winsted great again. It can be done, but it takes thinking big, it takes spreading the word, and it takes informing people that we intend, with the next group that wins in the election in November, to do as Donald Trump is doing now We intend to take on the big, tough, hard problems. There are many, and that's what I'll try to discuss over the next few weeks and months until November on this program. I'll watch closely what Donald Trump is doing. I consider him to be not a Republican or a Democrat, but somebody who wants to get the job done and will most likely improve our situation immensely. He's already has already a bit of a tailwind. So we'll concentrate on that. Now, I also want to talk in this first program about my own background that you'll read about in my forthcoming autobiography, A Life in the Fast Lane. I got into the fast lane too long to explain the whole story to you, but I was in the computer business at a young age because I had a mathematics background, and I could talk to CEOs of companies, I could talk to janitors in companies, I could talk to factory workers in companies, I could talk to other executives in companies, and along the way I was asked to help the CEO of Sperry Rand Univac Division, Sperry Rand Corporation Univac's division, to help companies around the world that were using their products, computer products, to run their airlines, run their banks, and run other real-time computer systems. It's a long story how I got to this position. That'll be explained in the book, and maybe I'll touch upon it over future months. But when the CEO of Sperry Rand Univac Division, the second or third largest computer company in the world at that time, needed somebody to help save an airline around the world or a bank around the world from leaving Univac when their systems weren't performing satisfactorily and they couldn't run their bank or their airline, he would get a letter from them saying they intended to leave the company and go with a competitor. So he would contact me, and he would ask me to go and talk to that CEO of that corporation or the person that ran their computer department, and to make sure that their system got up and running again. And he told me to send him a note telling him what he needed to do in his company to make that system work again. So I would fly there at the drop of a hat. It was important to get there quickly, anywhere in the world, no matter what my personal obligations were. Talk to the CEO of the customer or the person in charge of the computer systems, find out what the real problems were, report it to the CEO of the company, and then he would get me whatever I needed throughout his company and suppliers to help solve that customer's problem. I would then put in some people that could responsibly run the project, and I'd go off to help solve the problems on the next one. Now, having done this for many years, before I became an executive myself, I got to understand how people like Donald Trump think, how they get things done, how they plan for success, how they manage by objectives, how they manage by exception. You're seeing all that happen right now if you watch the news. Now, when I went around the world, I was about 28 years old. Nobody wanted to see me coming. I was an American, 28 years old. And most of the founders in the computer business, the customers were 60 years old, or 55, or maybe even 65 years old. And they came out of the IBM typewriter business one way or another. So they didn't want to see me coming. because I was going to report to the CEO of their company about the problems that we were having with the customer. Often, our own employees were part of the problem. They'd blame the customer. They'd blame the factories. They'd blame the development laboratories. They'd blame the vice presidents. They'd blame anybody. And they didn't want to know what the truth was. Now, we have a very similar problem here in America, and that's what Donald Trump is trying to do now. He's trying to get all the problems out on the table, get everybody to realize what the real problems are. He doesn't want to gild the lily, that's for sure. I had to do the same. So I understand Donald Trump. I understand his approach, and I agree with his approach. Would it be better if he had different colored hair? Probably. Maybe not. Would it be better if he had a little different background? Most likely not. Would it be better if he were perfect? Never happened. So we have to look at the absolute value of what he's doing, and we have to say either we agree or we disagree. Now, of course, many people disagree until they see the results. That happened to me around the world. When they saw the results, they began to invite me to 20-year reunions and all that kind of thing, where they didn't want to see me coming in the first place. So let's start with one little story about Donald wanting to keep businesses in America, just like we like to keep businesses in Winsted. He wants to attract businesses to America, just like we want to attract businesses to Winsted. We might want to have clean businesses. That's okay. There are plenty of those. But he wants to make America great again. And we want, I hope, to make Winsted great again. Now, there are some people in Winsted, mainly at the lake and in Winchester, who don't really want to make Winsted or Winchester great again. They want it to be like Litchfield. They want it to be like Goshen. But that isn't going to happen. Won't be like Great Barrington either. We're going to have to make Winsted great again by putting it first in our priorities, just like Donald's trying to do with America. America first. We have to say Winsted first. Let's find out what we need to do to help Winsted and the lake and the town of Winchester. Everybody must succeed, or we all will continue to decline and fail. We need to reduce the regulations that we have. Donald Trump told the business leaders that we perhaps have 75% more regulations than we need or should have. And we have to reduce by 75% the regulations at the United States level. We have the same problem in Winsted. A certain group of people have taken over, and we have way too many regulations. Way too many. It's too difficult to get anything done in Winsted. There are a lot of reasons for that, but the main reason is because we've had a weak Board of Selectmen and a weak Board of Finance and a weak Democratic Party, and now I believe we're also having a pretty weak Republican Party. So we're going to have to turn to the unaffiliated voters, and we're going to have to get them elected. There will be some couple Democrats probably that will be qualified to run and help us win again. There will be a few Republicans perhaps that are qualified and help us win again, but we can't rely on either of those parties. We need to get all the unaffiliated people that are on the voting list, we need to get them involved. We need to get some of them that are well qualified to run for office. We need to get them elected, and they need to help us make Winsted great again by taking the kind of approach that Donald Trump and his team are now taking. And as you note from watching television and reading the papers, Donald Trump has gone out, as he promised he would, and he's hiring some excellent people that want to make America great again and are qualified to do so. They don't have much government experience, but they have experience making things great, making things grow, some of them including their own family wealth. And they can take those same techniques and they can make America great again over the next 8 years or so that Donald Trump will probably be in office, providing he maintains his health. He can do it. Now we need to do the same. We need to find a Donald Trump in our town. That Donald Trump needs to come forward, put together a good team to run for the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen. They don't have to be Republicans. They don't have to be Democrats. Hopefully there'll be people that do not have to be loyal to any one given party philosophy, because the parties are almost 180 degrees apart in philosophy, although the Republicans are becoming much more liberal and closer to the Democratic Party, in my view, than they should be. I was hoping that the Republican Party, even though I'm not a member of it, would be strong and would help make Winsted great again. But they don't seem to be doing that. They seem to be getting weaker and weaker and being sucked into the liberal, let's not make Winsted great again, people in our town and city. This is not good. We can't rely on them anymore. We can use them if they have some good people. We can use them. The other thing you have to remember is that every 2 years or so, on average, maybe 2.5 years now, I don't know, we lose our town manager. And it's a tough job being a town manager here. I did a program once where Superman refused to take the job because he said that he wouldn't have a chance to succeed in our form of government with our charter, our state regulations, our federal regulations, our town regulations. Superman said he would not be able to succeed. I still have that program. I might run it again this year just so you can see, because things haven't changed that much. Now, I will try to talk to people, but you got to understand that if somebody is in business in our town, they don't want to run for office. They don't even want to put a sign in their window. They don't even know which party they're in, political party they're in, because then they will be chastised. The opposition will not frequent their business. Even now, most people go to Torrington or towards Hartford for anything anyway. Very hard to shop, no matter how much they ask you to, in Winsted, because we don't have enough of a base. We don't have the people here that want to run the businesses until we can eliminate a lot of the drawbacks that we have in our town, city, and state, and to a certain extent at the federal level. Helping to reduce taxes will stimulate things. People will have more money in their pocket to spend. Reducing the regulations will help, because people will then be able to move faster and get things done at a more reasonable cost. removing things, or at least changing them a bit, like Dodd-Frank, will make it easier for people to get loans, to buy houses and apartments and other things. And things will begin to get stimulated again. That's probably why you saw the big bounce in the stock market after Donald Trump won the election, despite the fact that most people in his own party didn't think he could do it. Personally, I'm glad to see that name recognition did not win at the national level. We didn't get a third Bush. We didn't get a second Clinton. We got a first, Donald Trump. Now in Winsted, name recognition, as I said in other programs, is killing us. We've got people running that aren't qualified. We've got one person on our finance board who can't vote on 65% of the financial decisions because he also works one way or another in the school system, the Gilbert school system. We have other people that don't know how to run a business, never will. We have a mayor that I think is the worst thing that ever happened to Winsted in my lifetime anyway. I don't know much about before that. She's been here through all the decline and doesn't have a background or philosophy that will help to make Winsted great again. So we really need to pay attention. We really need to think carefully. We need to beat about the bushes and convince people that are unaffiliated voters to run for office if they're qualified to run the town like a business. It can't be totally like a business because of our form of government and all the state interventions and all the federal interventions and all the unfunded mandates. We have to leave a lot of that up to Donald Trump to resolve for us with his management team and whatever help he can get from either party. Doesn't look like he's getting much help from the Democratic Party, but he'll get a lot of independent support at the national level. Unaffiliated is called independent. I never ran into unaffiliated till I came here. I was always an independent at the national level, and I still am. And in Winston now, I'm an unaffiliated voter because I don't want the Democratic Party or the Republican Party to boss me around. I want to make my own decisions. I don't need their support. But you'll need support from anybody who can come in and make up their own mind. From what I hear about the Democratic Party, if you're a member of the town committee, you have to go with their approach. You can't vote on your own, or you might get thrown off the town committee over time, and that's not good. It's not healthy. When I look at the Democrats in our town now, it looks to me like most of them are liberal, very liberal. There is no balance there between a liberal and conservative. They certainly don't show any willingness to make Winsted great again. They want it to be more like Goshen, Litchfield, Great Barrington. And I don't think that's going to happen in a million years. We need to find out how we in Winsted can be number one, how we can be great again. We can't be stymied by surrounding towns. We can't be stymied by a few people on the lake or a few people in the town of Winchester. And a few people in the town, especially in the school systems. We need to get past that. Now, when Donald Trump first got in, he called in not all, but a lot of the big business CEOs in America. And he told them that he wanted their help in getting people to stop leaving America with their businesses for other countries. He wanted them to grow their businesses in America, and he wanted them to help make America great again. He could also penalize them if they did move their factories, and he did intend to do so, out of the country by charging them import duties on their products when they came back into the country. Now that's very complex, all of that. He also told them that he wanted to reduce the regulations. He wanted to reduce them by about 75% to make it easier for businesses to perform and to grow and to help make America great again. I concentrate on these two issues tonight because, in my view, those are the two top issues we have in our town. We need to grow the grand list, not by piddly little amounts, but by great amounts. And I suggest that we call in all the key business leaders in Winsted, get them around a table once a month, and have them help us make Winsted great again by keeping their businesses in our town, by helping to attract other businesses to our town that pay profitable, recurring taxes to help defray our expenses, and to provide jobs to our people so we won't have them all streaming off to Hartford every morning or in some other direction to work, which is dangerous and time-consuming. As I said, he also said he would help them, the businesses, by trying to make less regulation and give them a chance to succeed. Regulation can help in some cases, but can also strangle businesses, communities, families, and people. We have the reputation in Winsted of being hard to work with, hard to deal with, hard to get anything done with, hard to plan for success with. So people say, why should I do that? Why don't I just go somewhere else? Why don't I have those problems? I was just talking to a person who was a builder in the area, and I asked him how his business was doing. And he said, oh, very well. He said, I do most of my business up around Armenia, New York, and Norfolk, and all those places, Canaan. And he said, they're building a big golf course up near Armenia, New York. They're having multi-million-dollar houses going there. They're probably going to have a few cars on the trains that come in to Wassaic to help them get back and forth to New York when they need to go. And some of these houses are going to be really expensive. And one of them will be owned by a very famous football player that's well known throughout the world. Big thinking. Thinking big. Spreading the word is going to help Armenia grow their grand list. Now, there's no reason why we can't do the same thing. We can do the same thing. We had that opportunity. We have 660 acres or so, give or take, in our town. Been trying to get sold for many, many years. We had it going pretty well until we got hit by the greatest recession since the Great Depression a few years back. That put everything on hold. We also had other people wanting to come into town to do other exciting things. We made it very difficult for them to get their approvals. We didn't help them very much. They also got hit by the greatest recession since the Great Depression. We ourselves have a lot of need to grow the grand list with what I call advantageous revenue. Advantageous revenue is revenue usually that's paid more in taxes than it requires in services from the town in one form or another. And remember, 65% of our budget goes to the school systems. And we don't have the greatest test scores in the world, as I always say. And I know that if my children were living here, I'd be putting them in a private school somewhere where they could get a good education. That might be Winsted if it went to St. Anthony's or one of the schools around here that's private. It would cost me money to do so, but I've seen that all over the world. If people don't like the education system, they'll put their kids in private schools because their children's education usually comes first. Now, those who can't afford it, that's a problem for them. And that's the reason we need to get the test scores up. But almost everything requires money. And if we don't understand that, then we will never succeed. Now, Donald understands that. He wants to reduce the debt. He wants to keep the businesses in the country. He wants to provide the jobs. He wants to reduce the excessive health care costs. He wants to try to balance business and management of the federal business. So we need to get people in the next election in Winsted to want to do the same thing and to reach high. To reach high. And the way you reach high is not to have a meeting with people in town that have never run a business or grown a town and ask them how they want to grow their town. It's okay to have a few people like that, but what you need to do is reach high. You need to ask the people who run businesses, the people who run businesses in other towns and cities and states. What do we need to do to make Winsted great again? And you need to get them involved. You get some of them on the finance board, you get some of them on the Board of Education, and they concentrate on trying to help grow the grand list, while other excellent people concentrate on how we can get our test scores up and how we can get our infrastructure cleaned up and how we can do those things. But to concentrate on all that without any money in this world is very, very difficult. So I think you all got to pay attention. You got to watch what's going on, and you've got to stop voting for name recognition people that have no expertise whatever to run our town. You need to help the people that do know how to run a business, which has great similarities with running a town and business. Teaching the third grade, not too much similarity with running a town business. Now, we may be non-profitable, as everybody tells me. We're a non-profitable business. I understand that. But we need to raise the revenue so we can pay for all the costs that we have piled up over many years by having weak management and a weak balance in the people on the Board of Education, on the Finance Board, members of the Boards of Selectmen, unfunded mandates from the state, unfunded mandates from the federal government. It's tough. So what are people doing? As you know, they're voting with their feet. They're leaving. They're sending their kids to private schools elsewhere if they can afford it. They're leaving town. I can't even count the number of people that told me they're leaving town so their kids could be in better school systems in the state and out of the state. It's happening. If you don't see it, ask around. Ask around. There's plenty of examples, and you will see them everywhere. Tough situation we have. I don't blame any of this on the town workers. They all try to do their best. It's the leaders that need to improve. When people win, like in the Super Bowl, or in any sport, or in any business, it's because they know how to make things great again. They've done it. They can show others. They can help others. But as any teacher will tell you, you can't teach anybody that doesn't want to learn. So I would say, enough of their name recognition, enough of hiring people because they're nice people. Let's get some expertise in here that can help us make Winsted great again. You can do it. You have people here, and they don't even have to run for office. The people who run for office have to take advantage of their presence and include them in decision making and ask them for advice and get them to help make Winsted great again. We have the capability. We have the people. They're just not in the Board of Finance, the Board of Education, the Board of Selectmen, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals. Now, the other commissions and committees and groups have some excellent leaders. Senior citizens have excellent leaders. And the Wetlands Commission has a good, balanced commission. There's a lot of good things happening. The Economic Development Commission, not very good because it doesn't have anybody in there that's trying to make Winsted great again. They have no power. I've been told by a couple town managers that the Economic Development Commission has no power. I went on there when appointed once for 3 months, and I found out that they had no power and they weren't going to get anything done. Now, in the old days, way back, when they were successful, they had power. They could help make Winsted great. But that's been taken away from them one way or another. Can't blame just Winsted, probably the state's involved and the feds too. But it's hard. They had about 11 people on the commission when I was there. I could see right away I wasn't going to get anything done. I personally went on for 3 years to the Inland Wetland Commission to try to help them balance their commission, and we did. And it's still balanced pretty well. You don't hear too many people disagreeing with the Inland Wetland Commission anymore. But we really have a problem. We had a bunch of liberal people put the POCD together, Plan of Conservation and Development required by the state. It wasn't a balanced committee. I went to some of their meetings. Couldn't get a word in edgewise. Planning and zoning, same thing. Not in my backyard. They don't want any development in their backyard. Well, I always tell them, if you go to some of the greatest places in America and you look across the street or up on a hill, you'll see a house. If you come to Winsted, they say, we don't want to see any houses up on the hills. That's one of the reasons why we're not great. That's one of the reasons why we need to change our ways. That's one of the reasons why we need to get better people in the next election from any group or party, as long as they're qualified, to run for office and to get on the Board of Education, to get on the Selectmen Board, to get, especially on the Board of Finance. We should have people on the Board of Finance that do understand finance. And I'm sorry to say, it's my opinion, that we're not in very good shape there at all. We need a lot more to be done. So over the next weeks and months, I'll be writing a few letters to the newspapers. I'll be trying to convince people to run for office. They're not the same old has-beens. We have family members, one here and one there, and we have other family members, one here and one there. Looks like nepotism to me. We have a civil service commission that tries to keep nepotism out of our town. I don't agree with the civil service commission. I believe it should be handled by the managers. So do most people in town, but they can't seem to change it. But anyway, why do we want to have a man and his wife both in key positions? Why do we want to have a mayor and her best friend both in key positions? We don't want to do that. I call that nepotism, and I think other people do too. Everybody can see it, of course. It's not hidden. Well, I'll wind up this program for this week, and perhaps for the next few weeks, by saying that we're very lucky now. We have an excellent town manager that knows finance. He only has a certain amount of power, however. He doesn't have much power over 65% of our budget, the schools. He doesn't have much power over any of the commissions and committees. He can use his influence wherever practical. That would be a big help. He has no power over the state either. In order to do better, we need to get a strong finance board. We need to get a strong board of selectmen. We need to get a strong board of education, well balanced, with financial members that understand that we need to balance the budgets and grow the grand list. When I went around 10 years ago with my green paper trying to make Winsted great again, everybody said, oh, that's somebody else's problem. That's somebody else's responsibility. Well, my view is that they all have to work as a team. They all have to get together once a month, twice a month, around a table. Maybe they have to bring some milk and cookies. But they have to talk to each other, and they have to come up with a united plan that includes all aspects, Gilbert included, one way or the other, and they have to come up with a plan for success so they can get things done and try to help make Winsted great again. The new town manager, an MBA from Harvard University with plenty of education and business experience. He's on a lot of boards and commissions around the place, around the area. He's a big help to many people when it comes to the financial side. But he can't grow the grand list with a lot of help from everybody, and he can't balance the budget. Now, we are making some progress on the spending side. We'll know when we get the next audit. We'll know when all that information is made public, and we can review it and pass it around. Now, I'm hoping that the town manager stays for enough years until we do have a strong foundation for him to leave. We tried to get the last town manager out for many years because he wasn't getting us there. And it's a good thing we did. It's a good thing he finally left, because now we have the best town manager that we're likely to have in a long time. I always tell people that when I was in business, the major companies that I worked for in the rapidly growing computer business, they got a different years or more. that I sat with a financial CEO for 5 years. Great again. They haven't been very successful at that. So with that, I'm going to wind up tonight. Next time, we'll talk some more about what Donald's doing and what we need to be doing in Winsted in parallel to make things and Winsted great again. Now, this will all take many years. Remember what Tony Michikowski told me many years ago? It takes 10 to 15 to 20 years to get anything done in government. It'll take Donald a long time, for 8 years. It'll take on our Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, play the end of the town. Sweet home. Perhaps we can make our home, Winsted, great again. Think big. Spread the word. And let's make Winsted great again in this very important election year.